Welcome back. Written on the wall of the Temple of Athena was the motto, Know Thyself. Pretty important, right? They chiseled it into the wall. So today we're going to talk about how we can know ourselves. Sun Tzu, the great strategist, said, Know thy enemy and know thyself, and you will win 100 battles. Isn't that amazing? But it all begins with knowing ourselves, right? And meditation, of course, is a process of learning to know ourselves. And we take that to be a very spiritual process. We're going to learn to know our higher selves, not just our subconscious, but also our superconscious, the higher self, those deep gamma brain waves that descend on us in the download phase and begin to enlighten us, and we begin to move into absorption and samadhi experiences, right? That's a very, very deep process. Along the way, we can also get to know our psychological selves. And this is really, really valuable when it comes to understanding where we are coming from. And it's also very valuable if you happen to be in a relationship, or maybe you're trying to create a relationship with somebody and you want to know where they're really coming from. Well, that is a process of learning their values and learning your own values. So I want to teach you how to do that really simply today, so that we can begin to understand this. And you might be able to slip this into your conversations, maybe with your loved one, maybe with your husband or your wife or your date, or maybe with your boss, and begin to understand more deeply where they're coming from and why you might have potential conflicts. So it's really, really fascinating. And of course, it all leads to that deeper understanding that we encounter in meditation as we get into those higher brain waves. So let's get into it. So in neurolinguistic programming, we learned how to elicit other people's values. This is really, really amazing when you take a team in a corporation and you elicit all of their values about what they're doing, and then you align them together. And you take a group that's kind of like, oh, we're here and it's good and we're working and it's, it's just kind of coddle womping along, right? And you take all of those desperate forces and you suddenly align them. And all of a sudden, this group becomes a juggernaut of power. They become really, really powerful because suddenly they're all aligned. They're all pulling in the same direction. And so you can do this in a relationship as well. It's a slow process. It's a very deep process, and you have to be very gentle and careful with it. But it becomes very amazing when you align with somebody else's values. But first, you have to know what they are, right? So the very first thing is to begin with ourselves and begin to ask, what is important to me about life? That's the big category, right? What's important to me about life? Well, you might say, if you're on my channel, you might say, well, meditation is important to me. Well, financial security is important to me. Recreation and health are important to me. So make that list, right? What's important to you? Don't use my words, use your words. What comes up for you? And then write all of those out. It's a really fun project when you have some time. Write all of those out and then take a look. Okay, and which one is the most important to you? Put that as number one on your list. And it's not the one that you would like it to be number one, but what actually feels to you from your gut. What is the most important to you? And then what is second? What comes in second behind that first one? What comes in second? Okay, put that number 2, and then number 3, and number 4. And you might have gotten 5 to 9 answers or more about what is important to you about life. And as you list all of those out, those are your values, but now you have to put them in a hierarchy, right? You have to find out what is most important to me. And it's those first five that you really have time for in your life. And the rest are always going to fall off board. So you're like, why does meditation keep falling off board? Or why does this or why does that keep falling off of my radar? Well, it's very simple. It's not in your top five, and so it's going to slip off eventually. And so it's really interesting in understanding what is actually important in our lives and what we're actually going to spend time with based on our values. And that's what these are. We are eliciting our own value system. Now, in NLP, we had some categories, some subcategories under life. And so now we're diving a little bit deeper into each aspect of our life and asking what is important to us in this particular subcategory. So that might be spirituality and religion, health, career, or your job or your work, family and relationships, recreation, and finally self-help or higher learning or continuing education, however you continue to improve yourself. So these are the 6 categories under life. And now you can take each one of those subcategories and ask yourself, what's important to me? What's important to me about spirituality? And list those out. What answers come up from your gut? Don't try and reason it out. Try and feel what it actually is important to you. What comes up from your gut inside. Write that down. What's important to you about your job, your career? What's important to you about that? Write those out. Get 5 to 9 answers for each subcategory. And then take each answer and put it in a hierarchy of importance. What is number 1? What is number 2? What is number 3? And so on. Once you have that picture in each of these categories, you're going to have an amazing view of what is actually important in your life. Then you can take each of these 6 categories and you can decide which one is the most important to you. You can categorize spirituality, health, career, family, recreation, self-help. Which one of these is the very most important? What is secondarily important? And now, if you notice that your health keeps kind of slipping off of your radar, well, now you might know why. It's because it might be low on that list. Or if health is very important to you, you'll see right away it's going to be high on the list. And the same thing with meditation and spirituality. So it's a really, really wonderful, interesting exercise. The next interesting thing to know is that all values are either towards or away from. So if you ask yourself what's important to you about life, or what's important to you about spirituality, and you get the answer, well, being happy, that's a towards. You're going towards being happy. But if you get the answer from deep inside and it goes, not being sad, well, that's an away from, isn't it? You're running away from being sad. And so all of our values are either the stick or the carrot. And we're either running away from something or we're running towards something. And that's going to make a big difference in how it plays out in our lives. So now that you have begun to do this for yourself and you're understanding your own value system, how you see the world and how you go after certain things and how you run away from other things, how this all plays out in your life, you're going to look at your life and you go, oh my God, it makes so much sense. That's that value. That's that value. And then you can begin to ask your loved one, or maybe you can begin to ask your friend, or maybe you begin to ask your boss, hey, what's important to you about life? And just get some answers. And when you're listening, when they say, oh, well, this is important and this is important. Oh, and this is important. Well, you know that third one is probably the most important on that short little list they just gave you, right? So you can begin to mentally number which one of these is the most important in their hierarchy. Or if you're sitting down with your wife and you want to try out this experiment together, and you write out all of your values and your wife writes out all of her values, and then you compare the two and you go, oh my God. Now this is why you and I are always bumping on this one issue, right? I have health way down here and you have health way up here on your hierarchy of importance. And so I'm always sitting on the couch and you want to get out and run. And there's a little bit of conflict there. Oh my God, it makes so much sense now because you see what's actually important to each other. So it's a really wonderful deep dive. I occasionally get questions about dating. I just got a question from somebody about meditation and dating. This is a wonderful exercise when you're getting to know somebody. If I'm going to live with this person for the next 20 years or 30 years or 50 years, and we're going to get along, it might be a good idea if our values kind of coincide with one another in some shape or form, right? And so maybe it might be a good idea to ask them while you're on a date, hey, what's important to you about life? And getting those answers, you're going to know that person on perhaps a deeper level than their best friend because you're actually interested and you're actually going into their answers about what is most important about life to them. It's a really wonderful way to get to know your friend or your husband or your wife or even your boss. You really want to know them. You really want to get into what is really pushing this person's buttons in their life. What is motivating them to move forward? Knowing these answers will tell you exactly that. Now, when you are looking at your values, maybe you have an away from, maybe you have something low on your hierarchy, you want to move that one up. Well, you can look at the negative emotions around whatever is in your hierarchy. And let's say meditation is low and I want to put it up. Well, maybe I have some fear and that fear is driving me to make these first items on my hierarchy the highest. And meditation for that reason is a little bit low. So if I take out some of that fear or some of that negative emotion around those items, then I will begin to move meditation up on the hierarchy automatically. And so if you go into each of those items and you say, what negative emotions do I have around this? And you start to do some timeline therapy or do some Om Japa in your chakras, specifically on those negative emotions, then you'll notice it begins to clear out. And the hierarchy will automatically, when you re-solicit the hierarchy again, you'll notice that it has moved around a little bit. So it's a really amazing way to see how your own self-therapy is affecting your values and your values hierarchy. It will transform in front of you, and you'll have such an amazing view of what you're doing on yourself as you transform. It might be a good idea to go very slowly when you're cleaning up your values. Take your time and notice how it transforms you. You might not want to go too fast. Here's a funny story. So I learned all about the values. I just loved it. I took a deep dive. I elicited all of my values in every corner of my life. And then I started cleaning it up. I'm like, I don't like that, and I don't like that, and that's an away from. I'm cleaning that out. And I did all this timeline therapy on myself. And I had been so enthused about neurolinguistic programming and timeline therapy. I'm going to do this coaching. It's going to be great. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to advertise. I'm going to do all this stuff. And I cleaned up all my values, and all of that ambition completely evaporated. Just gone. So I had all these away froms, right? I was running away from not having enough money and yada yada, and I just cleaned it all up, and all of my ambition, which was based on those away froms, completely just evaporated, and all I wanted to do was become a hermit, sit at home, and meditate and read. So, and that lasted for quite a while. So you might want to go slow before you completely reorganize your life. Take a little bit of time. But that's a funny story about just how powerful this process is. And if you work with somebody, if you work with the husband and the wife, work together and you both transform and align your values, it becomes very, very, very valuable, because the two of you will start to connect, and you'll start to help each other and get behind each other. And instead of being at odds with each other, you'll start to support each other, we hope, because you each have a deep understanding of where the other one is coming from. So it's really, really magical. And I hope you loved it. I hope you'll try this out. What's important to me about life? What's important to me about spirituality and health and career and family and recreation and self-help? Try it out. Make a list, put it into an order of importance, and find out more about what is driving you in your life. And it will amaze you. And understanding this, even if it's only a few questions that you get answered from other people, understanding a few of those will really help you to understand what is driving the people around you in your life, why they're going after certain things. It will become crystal clear, and you'll have so much understanding and compassion because of that. So I hope you love this. If you did, be sure to hit that bell down below so I can see all of you next time.